I am now going to cover how to respond to common racist statements. So this link is on our readings, but it might be something that you kind of glanced over or just like looked at or clicked through. But I want to address it because I think it's really important, especially in the conversation that we are having. Um, and the whole point that the whole goal that I think would be something for us to strive for is being anti-racist. Now, if you're hearing that word and you're having a knee-jerk reaction where you want to go, oh, and you feel angry or you feel defiant, I think it's important to ask yourself, why might that be the case? Why would you have an urge to be angry towards that word anti-racist? So that's not for me to understand. That's a question for you, but it's something that I think is really important that we address. So again, if you're feeling the urge to kick back when you hear that word, let's ask why. What does that mean? And again, nothing that we are doing in this class at all is intended to make anyone feel ashamed or guilty or whatever. Let's be honest, like we live in a white dominant world, and it's very easy to be blind to things that we just don't know because we haven't seen. And I say not all people, but majority of the time we might not recognize it because we have not experienced it. And that being the case, I really think that Marie Beach is the person who wrote this, who is Black. They are going to be coming from their point of view. So I'm just reading it from their voice, okay? Okay, so the lines in black here are what are statements that people have made that Marie is going to address, okay? And so I recall I myself have even said this statement, and yes, of course I'm embarrassed now, but I can recognize where I was wrong. And so the line here would be, I don't see color. We are all one human race. Okay, so I'm going to follow with what Marie is saying here. So while we are all human and biologically the same, because again, we've talked about that before, biologically we are the same, but systematically we've created differences. And so the systematic oppression of Black people makes Marie's experience vastly different from, say, mine. To say that, for me to say that I don't see race would mean that I don't see Marie's oppression or her marginalization or the discrimination that she experiences every single day. When I say I don't see color, it diminishes Marie's suffering or people of color suffering or Black people suffering. And it excuses me from my responsibility of being an anti-racist. So when I say I don't see color, I am diminishing the struggles that others are going through. It's important for me to see race in order for me to combat racism. So again, if your instinct is, I don't see color, we are all one human race, or that I am colorblind, well, that line right there is the absolute opposite of being anti-racist, because to not see race would mean to not give people the voice of, hey, look, I'm being oppressed, I'm being marginalized, and I'm being discriminated against daily. Do not diminish that suffering, okay? All right, so another line that has been said often is, you think something I said was racist? You must have misunderstood me. Okay, again, we're coming from Marie's point of view where it says, when individuals perpetuate racism, it's usually unintentional. In my experience personally, when I have said something that was racist, it was not intentional. It was not something I said to be hateful, to be discriminatory, or, there was never my intention. That's not to say that it wasn't still racist, because racist acts are defined by their impact, not their intent. So whether or not I intended to be racist, it does not diminish the fact that I was, okay? Marie says, give Black people the benefit of the doubt when we call out racism. If Marie is going to call me out on something that I have said that is racist, it is important for me to stop and go, oh, tell me what I said, because I obviously didn't know what I was saying that was racist. Okay, rather than suggesting that Marie might not understand or doesn't have the intelligence to understand what I'm saying, which is wildly inappropriate. it's important for me to go, oh, tell me, what is it that I said? Because I did not intend to be racist, but it is apparent that what I said was impactfully racist. Okay. So listen and learn. Like Marie says, listen and learn from us about how to confront racist ideologies. Again, we live in a white dominant world where we might not see, I say we, where people might not see behaviors that we partake in that could be racist. And if someone is saying, "Hey, that's racist," go, "Oh, tell me." It's like the ice cream man. Remember the ice cream man, right? Like I had no idea that those were very racist, inappropriate songs. Now that I know that, when I hear them, I cringe, and that's good. That's okay. It's important for me to recognize again that impact, that those unintentional things happen. Anyway, okay, here is a statement. I'm not a racist person. Okay. So Marie's here letting us know that this is not a non-racist people versus or good non-racist people versus bad racist people. Okay. Binary concepts is a gross oversimplification of what racism is. So racism is oftentimes subconscious, undetected, and born out of privilege or apathy. So for me, any racist act that I am doing is not, I'm not a racist. That's not the point. The fact is that I was born of privilege. And because of that, I am very subconsciously or undetecting of my racism. And it's just important for me to be mindful of it. I personally, quote unquote, I'm not a racist person. Doesn't mean that my acts are not racist, right? So racism isn't just about bad people's minds. Racism affects all people who belong to a radicalized society. Yes, we are a radicalized society. We are a white dominant society. That's just very simply put. And to put more effort into learning about how to be anti-racist. Okay, that's my ultimate goal. How can I be anti-racist? Okay, and it puts you into a convincing others. I'm sorry. Being anti-racist is more important than convincing other people that you're not racist. Okay, I'm not racist. I'm not racist. Saying it doesn't mean anything. It's the actions, right? So putting more effort into learning about how can you be anti-racist is the biggest point, right? So again, I can claim myself to not be a racist person. That's not to say that my acts aren't racist. Okay, again, I'm privileged and I am blind to my privilege, and I recognize that, and I'm slowly trying to open up myself to recognize where I'm blind to this. Okay. All right. Next, I'm not responsible for what my ancestors did. Am I supposed to feel bad about that? So when we have this conversation again, I'm not trying to make you feel guilty about anything. I'm just trying to open you up to understanding things. And that's our whole goal here, is just to be mindful. Again, when we talk about that brainology, the growth and the fixed mindset is holding on to the guilt and the shame. The fixed mindset goes, oh, there's nothing I can do, blah, blah. And we get upset about it and we get angry and we hold on to that. But the growth mindset goes, wow, I didn't realize that I was being racist. That's not my intention. Or, I don't want to feel bad, so then I can let it go and realize that what has happened is not my responsibility. My responsibility is to be better from this moment on. What I've done in the past or whatever, from this moment on, I intend to grow beyond, that mindset. So, as Marie says, we're living in a society that was built on the backs of Black people for the benefit of white people. Ta-da, that's it. That's just a statement right there, and that is the truth. Generational wealth, prosperity, and opportunity benefit white people. Okay, and so when we watch the Tulsa riots, we see that generational wealth was being stopped. Right? These Black communities. The Black Wall Street, as it was called, was creating their own wealth, and then it was cut at the knees. So generational wealth, prosperity, and opportunity just benefit white people. That's just the truth, okay? It's not to feel guilt or shame about it. It just is what it is. Recognize that injustice did not stop with our ancestors. White people are presently benefiting from the very systems that marginalized Black people. Feel convicted to reconcile today's injustices. Okay, so now that we're recognizing these injustices, it's important to be mindful of that, and where we can go, oh, you're right, I've been benefiting for a very, very long time here. And again, it's the intention is not to make you feel bad or shitty about yourself. That's not what we're doing here. I just want you to be mindful of it. Okay, so in a sense, when you say I'm not responsible for what my ancestors did, well, you're still technically benefiting from it. So it's important to feel convicted to reconcile today's injustices. Let us do something about it. That's the goal. Okay. Okay. Next, as a white person, I'm discriminated against because of reverse racism. Okay, this I've actually heard surprisingly a lot more than I anticipated in my lifetime. So, as a note, racism requires both prejudice and power. There's a key word there, power. Who has power in our society? Do Black people have power or do white people have power? Okay, so racism requires both prejudice and power. So you may face prejudice, absolutely. Like, that's okay, you face that. But it's not racism. And it's not racism because your race is in power, right? So I cannot say racism, I'm being discriminated against. I can't say that because I'm white. And white, right now, as a white person, there's more power in that than in being a Black person. So it's impossible for there to be discriminated against. There's no such thing as reverse racism for me. Okay. Okay. Again, so it's not racism because my race is in power. Okay, so I can't be discriminated because of that. Now, the criminal justice system favors white people. Okay, Brian Stevenson has a huge, story on this, right? So when we watch the movie Just Mercy, you'll see it for sure. But the criminal justice system favors white people, social institutions favor white people, and white culture is everywhere. Again, when we talk about, when you walk into a hair salon, majority of the people there are going to know how to handle my hair than if I was a Black woman. And that's important for me to recognize. And I don't know why that sticks out to me so much. And I think it's because I'm just like, I didn't ever think of that. I never thought of that. And so it sticks with me. And it really, for some reason, opened my eyes to understanding that privilege. Let's see here. So, oh yeah. And internalized prejudices attribute favorable traits to white people. Okay. We know that, we see that. That is not something that is a surprise, but it's important that we recognize it. White people are irrefutably in the place of power, so reverse racism does not exist. It is not possible. So if you try and go, well, it's reverse racism because I'm being discriminated against because I'm a white male or whatever the argument might be, it's impossible. Yeah, again, you might be, there might be some prejudice. Absolutely. There's prejudice all over, everywhere, in every place, because like we've talked about before, human beings like to feel powerful in some way, shape, or form. And so there's always going to be that towards somebody. And so we just recognize that. Anyway, so again, there's no such thing as reverse racism, especially as for me, like a white woman. Okay. All right. And some of you are about to scream this, I'm sure. Why do you make everything about race? Well, everything in our society is blanketed with white supremacy. That is very much an obvious thing. All right, so which is the notion that whiteness is the norm, the standard, or the ideal. Though Blackness is regarded as abnormal, substandard, and not ideal. White supremacy covers every facet of our society. Okay, look at your commercials. Look at your go into a bookstore. Tell me how many books relate to you. If you're white, or if you're of color or indigenous or whatever. When you walk somewhere, like where do you see those injustices, or where do you see a lack of injustice? Because here you're like, oh, all these books relate to me. We watch TV, when we look at commercials, when we go to the grocery store, how many things are catered to like our needs or your need or my need, right? So that's something to be mindful of. Okay. So it often goes unnoticed, all right, for those of you who benefit. And I did not notice it because I benefited it. And again, the hairdresser thing really kind of shakes me to the core because it was, I mean, I understood that it was a white dominant, culture, but I didn't even think of how much it would, I don't know. I became very aware of it when I think of it like that. So because it was so unnoticed because I was benefiting, I didn't recognize when someone wasn't benefiting. And I don't know why the hairdresser thing hits me so hard because it's like, oh my God, anyway, so to better recognize your privilege, take notice of oppression that you don't experience. If someone comes to you and says, hey man, I just need to let you know that this is oppressing me, or this is discriminating against me, or, when someone is telling you this, instead of going, well, it's not oppressing me, like, that's not the point. The point is you're not experiencing it. So of course you're not going to see it. Of course you're not going to understand it. It still exists. To deny it is to say, well, then, that's to deny someone else's suffering and oppression. And again, that's a racist statement. To deny someone their suffering is to deny them, you know, the legacies or the luxuries that we purchase. I say we, that I would participate in, or maybe you might. Okay. There's that line, all lives matter. And I know some of you might be a little triggered on this one too. Like, yeah, but all lives do matter. All people should be created equal. Absolutely, we would want all lives to be equal. The problem is that is not the case in society. When we say, I say, when all lives matter can't matter until Black Lives Matter. And the reason why the statement is so strong to say all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter, because systematic injustice is plaguing the Black community. If you were to say all lives matter, you're overlooking the racism that is within our society. And again, that's not anti-racism. That's racism in a sense, when you're not acknowledging it. All lives matter has been weaponized to silence the cries of those who are already unheard. Okay, so we just really need to be mindful of that. All lives matter promptly ends progress before it starts. Again, denying the fact that there is suffering going on, that their injustices are there. So again, all lives cannot matter until Black lives matter, until Indigenous lives matter, so it's important that we're mindful of that. To work toward equality for all people, we must start with advocacy for the most marginalized. Indigenous women for sure, Hawaiian peoples, anybody that right now just is, whose voice is being suffocated, are the people who all lives cannot matter until we can recognize that these voices need to be heard. So anyway, I think that's really important thing to understand as we move forward, where if your urge is to be like, well, all people should be equal, all people should be treated equal, absolutely, but it's not that way right now. And until we give equality in, again, justice systems, medical systems, health systems, until we can start recognizing our systematic racism, we don't have equality. Okay. All right. So if you are like me and you have said these things without realizing that they're racist, it's okay. We recognize now, like, look, I just don't know because, again, I come from privilege. I grew up in a small town in Paradise. Well, I still have privilege because I am white, and society has made it very easy for me to be successful or whatever. Like, I can recognize that. So it's important also for me to look back at those statements that have all been said and go, whoops, I might have said that. Oh, I've absolutely said I'm colorblind. Why? Because I didn't know better. Let's just put it that simply. I did not know better. I did not recognize that it was a racist statement. So microaggressions and the covert racisms are oftentimes unintentional. We don't mean to say things to be racist. That's not our intention. We don't realize that we're doing that. But again, regardless of our intentions, we need to accept and understand that we've made errors. Absolutely. That's what we talk about in week one. Like, where have I been blind to my privilege? Where have I done things that were inappropriate and racist? And I didn't know at the time, but I know now. And because I know now, I can accept it, I can understand it, and I could recognize like I need to change, and that's okay. Recognizing racial inequalities is very, very important. Confront your internalized prejudices by learning more about racism. The more we know, the more we are able to change and to do something different. Okay, so again, this whole thing is not meant to hurt anyone or to make you feel bad. Your line could still say this, but I still feel like I don't know enough to say the right things. And again, we talk about this in a brainology where we pause because, again, cultural, competency, we might not know enough about another race or another culture to speak on it. And that's okay. That's when we go and listen. All right, listen about racial injustices, amplify these voices. And I try and do that with Indigenous people. That's what I'm trying to do with this week too, to understand like the things that we've done. And especially like right now, the Hawaiian culture, there's still a lot of inappropriate appropriations done with the culture, the hula skirts, the coconut bras, and the fake lays. These are very racist acts. These are very inappropriate. And it's just important to be mindful of this and start recognizing it. And again, if your instinct is to push back and to go, well, I'm not trying to be racist, that's not the point. The point is you're being given an opportunity right now to recognize where you might have been racist. And it's okay to go, I realize I don't recognize my privilege and I would like to be more mindful. And to use that line, it's a free country. I could do whatever I want. I have free speech is wildly racist. It's very, very racist because that's you not even willing to look at people saying, please don't do this. You're stealing from my culture. You're taking away from my freedoms. You're hurting me and my family. So just please be understanding of that. And I guess respectful is our ultimate goal here. Anywho, so take a minute if you want. The link is there. If you don't have Instagram, that's why I walked you through it here. And we can talk about that in a little bit. But if you have questions, let me know. And I hope this helped give you a little bit more understanding on how you can be anti-racist.